So, 8th grade, my homeroom teacher was crazy enough to allow me and my buddy Steve, you guys are going to see him in a second in the picture over there, to actually organize the 8th grade graduation dance. That's not a lie, right? We had 2 weeks to prepare, and of course we decided to put on a rock show, obviously. And not only that, but we decided to hire ourselves to perform at this rock show. We've been practicing for weeks. What could go wrong? Right? So we didn't actually have instruments. We played on like acoustic guitars, and the drummer used, we practiced at Steve's grandma's basement. So we take her plastic tray with the silverware, right? You take that out and you hit it with a drumstick. It kind of sounds like a hi-hat. Yeah. You add an empty paint bucket and you get yourself a pretty decent drum set. That's how we practiced, right? So we had 2 weeks to find electric guitars and amps and an actual drum set, and we knew no one who actually owned this equipment. So those were very interesting weeks of my life. I could tell you stories, but I'll cut to the end where we actually did manage to find electric guitars. And not only did we find drums, but we got the guy to transport the drums to the school for us. I have a picture to prove it. There it is. I told you I'd embarrass myself. That's me at about 14. That's Steve right there. That's me. And if that picture's not embarrassing enough, I have another one for you. Here's a side boob. All right, woo, rock and roll. So that was the very first event I organized. In high school, I organized probably about a dozen events. College, same thing. In my 20s, I probably organized about, feels like hundreds of events. Probably inaccurate, but it feels like hundreds of events. Here's some additional stuff. That's me a little bit later on to redeem myself for the previous dorky shots. Yeah. So I organized a bunch of events in my 20s, and somehow I transitioned into organizing conferences. Never like my primary gig, just like a kind of a side thing that I would do in addition to everything else. Last year, the last one was last year, September 22nd. Who can tell me the significance of that date, September 22nd? Anyone? The day of equinox. That's right. Thank you. Very good. Yeah. And that was a conference we put on as part of my company conference, Triber. It was gangbusters. It was successful, which, from what I understand, is not typical for a first-time conference. So Liz asked me to talk to you guys. And by the way, what a great job Liz and her team have done. Clap it up for them. Great job, you guys. Liz asked me to come and present for you guys, and I started thinking, what can I share with you guys? What lesson can I share with you guys, professional event planners, that would matter to you? Is it that you can organize a conference with barely no resources? I think you guys already know that, right? Is it that you should take copious amount of pictures and video of your conference? Because you never know, you might end up using it 20 years later. I don't think so. I think that lesson you guys already know. Is it be on social medias? Be on Facebook? Be on Twitter and stuff like that? I figured even if you didn't know that coming in, by 4 p.m., others would have covered that, right? Is it to build some kind of symbolism into your event? September 22nd, the day of equinox. Something, an anchor for people to use to remember and to associate with your event, to give it more significance than a mere event. I think you guys know that lesson as well. And then I only had about 20 minutes to present, so I'm like, let's focus this. If 3 days from now, you guys think back to this session and you ask yourself, what the heck was Dino talking about? I really want you to take this one word with you. Take it home with you. And that's the word, polarity. Polarity, the yin and the yang. The us and them. The up and down. The darkness and the light. The masculine and the feminine. The polarity. I want you to take that with you. We've been kind of conditioned over the last few decades to be very politically correct and very depolarized. We all want advocates. We all want die-hard loyal fans of our conferences or brands or whatever it is that we're passionate about. We all want them, but we're all afraid to take a stand because that's what polarity is about. It's about positioning. And positioning is about taking a stand for something that you believe in, right? And taking a stand requires bravery, right? And being brave requires you to grow a giant set of balls. You too, ladies, these are metaphorical balls. All right? But in order for you to grow a giant set of balls, you have to kind of look deep within your psyche to find what it is that you care about and then bring it up and be brave enough to stand for it. And when you do that, I promise you, your communities will thrive. You will find your tribe. You will build a passionate advocates for you, your events, your brands, whatever the case might be. And I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes convincing you of that by showing you a case after case where successful companies have done so. So the first one I want to start with is a tiny little clothing retailer in San Francisco, that opened its doors back in 1969. They captured their entire philosophy, their entire marketing strategy. They captured their core of what they are and what they believe in with 3 little letters. Gap. Gap as in generational gap. Gap as in these are not your father's genes gap. Guys, think back. It's 1969 San Francisco, right? Let's go back in time. The generational gap between people who were born in the 50s and people who were born in the 1920s, the generational gap between those two generations is arguably the greatest generational chasm that's ever been known to history. Think about this. You're born in 1920s. 1929, recession. Stock market crash. You're living in a recession. 1930s, it's kind of a slow recovery to World War II. Now it's 5 years of World War, right? Mid-1940s, late 1940s, the American dream takes hold. 1950s was all about the American dream. It was all about the white picket fence. It was all about the plasticity of, the pretense and everything. It was all about the Stepford wives. And these adults that were born into this recession and into this hardship started to have kids in 1950s. 1950s, 1960s, these kids were turning teenagers. They were, 20 some odd years old. They were exposed to this plasticity of 1950s, and they rebelled against it. Counterculture, right? So the generational chasm has never been greater, and Gap tapped right into that. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure Gap was started by a couple of dudes who were total hippies, living in San Francisco back then. So it was very congruent with what and who they are. Gap represents everything that's right about creating polarity. Let me correct myself. They didn't even create polarity, right? They tapped into the polarity that already existed. Polarity is agnostic. It can be done wrong or it can be done right. I'll show you an example of doing it wrong. Oh, my videos are gone for some reason. Never mind. Well, I can give you a ton of examples of doing it wrong. There's one. Right? Our political system is all about polarity. It's all about creating an emotional appeal to the base. I hope this is clear to everyone, right? I don't even have to talk about this that much. You guys know who this is? Christopher Hitchens. He's a former, he used to be a professor at Cambridge, I believe. A noted atheist wrote a book called God is Not Great. I wish I was an acquisition editor at a big publishing house when this script hit my desk. I would assign him right then and there. Not because I agree or disagree with Christopher Hitchens, but he comes with papers. He comes with pedigree when it comes to atheism. He is congruent with his message, whether you agree with it or not. He is congruent with his message, and his message taps into the existing polarity between atheists and theists. And wouldn't you know it, it was a bestseller. Not only was it a bestseller, but it spawned a ton of other books that were either based off of it sort of reinforcing the arguments, or more than likely, or in more cases than not, they were actually written to refute the arguments posed in the book. It started a whole movement. He tapped into the polarity in a very powerful way. Hi, I'm a Mac, and I'm a PC. Positioning, taking a stand, right? This is all about polarity. Mac is the young, cool, hip guy. PC is the stodgy, Excel spreadsheet-loving, guy in a, what is that, like a blazer or whatever? Some khakis, right? This is demanding that you take a side. Ladies? Abercrombie and Fitch, I believe the CEO said this in, there it is. Don't read it. I'll just paraphrase it for you. I believe this happened in 2006, but he openly said it. We're not trying to appeal to everyone. We're trying to appeal to a specific set. Cool, young, good-looking, hip kids. That's who we want to wear our clothes. They've picked a side. They took a stand. Of course, he got a lot of flack for saying something like this, but Abercrombie & Fitch is rocking while other brands are floundering. So you tell me. Let me see if I can play this video.
Hey, ladies, this movie's not for you! It's either as Dr. Pepper 10, 23 flavors from 10 manly calories. It's what guys want. Like this. Catchphrase. Dr. Pepper 10, it's not for women.
This is everything that's wrong with polarity, right? This is completely contrived, right? Nobody cares about, first of all, 10 calories. I'm sure there's a ton of drinks out there with less and more and same amount of calories. And there's no division between men and women in terms of, what kind of soft drink they're going to consume, right? This represents everything that's wrong with polarity. Let's think to the agency that got hired to do this ad, right? Why did they take this direction? They said to themselves, well, polarity works. Let's use polarity to, we know we're not going to sell it to everyone, so let's just employ polarity to sort of, say, it's not for you, it's for you. Because a couple of things happen. When I say it's for you, you're like, oh, it's for me, okay. But the other group might go, what? It's not for me, gimme. Right? The campaign was short-lived. It's really bad. It's just terrible. Again, because nobody cares about this. This is employing polarity in a really terrible, contrived way, which goes back to what we said earlier. You have to kind of find your core, figure out what you stand for, and speak about your polarity from that core. If it's contrived, it's not going to work. I hope I made that clear. I believe 7-Up came out in like 1979, right? And it was actually the first instance of clear cola. So their positioning was the polar opposite of cola. You guys remember what it was? 7-Up, the un-cola, right? And you didn't know what 7-Up was when it first came out, but you knew what it wasn't. It wasn't the typical cola that you drink, so people were like, oh, let me try it if it's the un-cola. A good example, right? Let's see, do we have time for another one?
Oh my God! Oh gosh! I think it'll make a person become insane.
This game is an atrocity.
It's revolting. It's violent. It's everything you love in a game. And your mom's gonna hate it.
Why would they even make something like this?
Dead Space 2, rated M for mature.
You want to sell something to a teenager? Tell him the parents hate it. Right? That's a brilliant example of using polarity, figuring out what your tribe needs, wants, desires, right? And teenagers are finicky. You have to be careful with teenagers, right? You can't come at them directly. They detect the incongruence, and they will reject you on principle. Many brands have gotten burned like that, taking a direct approach. So let's not take a direct approach. Let's just show them a bunch of moms and show them that this other tribe, in fact, by all accounts, the opposing tribe, hates something like this. You want your kids to stop doing something, start doing it. It's so true, right? Like, even when in 1960s and 70s, like hippies grew up and started having kids, their kids went the other way. Like, they got all straight-laced and wouldn't do drugs and all that stuff. Right? It's incredible. All right? Let me give you another example. This one's a little bit contrived, but I think they pulled it off quite nicely.
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro?
Need any trainers, bro?
Trainers, bro.
Train and drain, bro. Train the body. Drain these suckers' bank accounts. You feeling me?
You drinking our protein, bro?
Definitely, bros. You guys like doors?
Dum 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 dum. Cool.
If you ever been to a gym, you know how uncomfortable you might feel if you have a bunch of muscle-bound, dudes training next to you, right? So that was a great example of using polarity and saying we are for them, not for them. And I'm like totally out of time. I have a bunch more to share with you guys, but I'll just leave it at this. And if you have any questions or comments or want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Facebook. All right? And I'm just going to take a picture of all of you guys. So that way, when you friend me, let me have my phone, please.
Well, here's your phone.
Thank you.
In my pocket.
When you friend me on Facebook, I'm going to take a picture of all of you guys. When you friend me on Facebook, tag yourselves in this picture. Oh, good deal, man. Try to capture everyone. All right. Good deal. It's okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Go. Good deal. It doesn't even matter if you guys are. Go ahead.
I want to see the Oprah one.
All right. It doesn't even matter if you're not in the picture. You've been here. Just tag yourself in the picture, and that way you can connect not only to me, but you can connect to one another. And I'm out.